Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about the implications of a strong US dollar. Now if you've been following the markets a little bit in the recent times, you must have seen that the US dollar is absolutely soaring, or shall we say most other currencies are actually dropping massively against the dollar. Now I'm living in Europe and we're using the euro currency, and in the past the euro was always worth more than $1. Now we reach a stage of parity where €1 equals $1, and that's just absolutely crazy, especially for us Europeans. Going to America makes it so much more expensive. Now the US dollar is actually the strongest it has been for the last 2 decades. So that's really a statement, especially in comparison to other currencies. On the flip side though, the British pound is absolutely tanking, or shall we say pounding, compared to the dollar, reaching all-time lows. Now let's look into what's driving this demand for dollar and the price surge in the dollar. And the most important factor behind it is obviously the Fed's decision to absolutely drive interest rates up in the US. Those interest rates hike make the US dollar much more attractive, because those hikes are also higher than many other central banks around the world. Like in Europe, we are much more moderate with the increase compared to the US. So that makes holding the US dollar and getting interest on it by leaving it in the bank account much more attractive. That's why there's more demand into having dollar, because you know you're gonna get a higher return for arguably lower risk. And secondly, the US dollar has always been a safe haven of currency, especially in difficult times around the world. And that's why more and more people are fleeing other currencies to rescue themselves and their portfolio into the dollar, because they know the dollar most likely is not gonna go anywhere. Unlike some smaller countries' currencies where you don't know if a recession kicks in, will it survive those difficult times? However, a strong US dollar is actually a double-edged sword, because it is the world's reserve currency with almost 40% of global transactions done in USD, and that's why the strength in the dollar has global implications. So let's look into who is benefiting from a strong US dollar, and that's mostly US importers, because they actually importing foreign goods significantly cheaper because their dollar buys more goods. So when they import things, they technically have to pay less than they had to in the past. So for them, it's really attractive to bring more goods, raw materials, supplies into America and then manufacture it from there. Now on the flip side though, of course, for exporters it becomes increasingly difficult because US products become more and more expensive. I've seen this recently myself when I wanted to buy the new iPhone. In Germany it increased significantly because basically they hedged the dollar to the euro price. So now it's so expensive, it's crazy. Luckily I could order directly from the US, so there it was actually much cheaper, and then imported back into Europe. And secondly, of course, American tourists are having the time of their life. Wherever they travel in the world, especially going to Europe right now, must seem like a Black Friday, because everything seems so cheap. Because they have such a strong dollar, it makes purchases and traveling significantly cheaper for them. Now once again, for tourists coming to America, it makes it significantly more expensive. So you know, there's always two sides to the equation, so you can see the impact of a strong dollar. There's not only positives but also negatives attached to it. Now for whom is a strong dollar bad actually? And here we need to look at multinational companies, especially those operating out of the US but operating on a global scale. So let's say the S&P 500, the 500 biggest companies in the States, they are generating almost 30% of their entire revenue internationally. For tech giants like Apple, etc., that's almost 60% of their earnings coming from abroad. Now that makes their earnings, which they get in other currency and send back home, much less valuable. So all those companies together lost billions just in exchange adjusted earnings last year. And secondly, a lot of the smaller countries around the world that are less wealthy than some of the Western countries, for them they're really feeling the pain, because a lot of their products are actually imported, so their prices are going up, and a lot of their debt is issued in US dollars. So for them to repay the debt in US dollar actually will now cost them significantly more than initially they thought it would. And that really expedites the debt crisis. So what we can learn from it? While it's good to see that the Fed is increasing interest rate in order to curb inflation, and we see slowly a cooling off of inflation, that has led to a record high performance of the US dollar, which causes major issues around the world, potentially leading to a global financial crisis. However, many economists are saying actually that's a good thing what the Fed is doing, because if they wouldn't curb inflation and kept it at a record high level and continue to increase, that would potentially create even bigger problems for America and later on the entire world. So as it's been mentioned so many times, we're truly living in unprecedented times. Whether the decisions being taken are good or bad, I guess only time will tell, but I do think it's important to understand the macroeconomic factors, which you and I, we may not be able to control them, but I think we can take smart decisions to make the best out of this situation. And for myself, what I realized, I definitely want to diversify my currency holdings and not just have all my eggs in one basket, meaning to not only own assets in euro currency, but also have assets in other currency, ideally in dollar currency for sure. While at the same time continuing to dollar cost average into my various asset classes such as stocks, ETFs and cryptocurrency. Having said that, more than ever, I'm now also very consciously building up my cash reserves, because I do think things will get even worse for the next coming month before they will get better. And that's why I think it's good to have significantly cash set aside for great investment opportunities, or in case you lose your job or income streams. You never know what might happen. So I definitely want this cushion of cash sitting there for either peace of mind or ideally capitalize later on when I see great opportunities. Check out the video over here where I run you through the apps and tools that you can use to get the best exchange rate whenever you travel, invest or send money. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel. It really means the world to me. If you have any questions or feedback, pop them in the comments. I always get back to every single one of you. As always guys, stay healthy, get wealthy, and I see you in the next one. Ciao!